to begin with Paul. Paul Van Elderen is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I also want to invite Roxanne for the song. Yeah, okay.
You know, I came to this country when I was 21 years old. I love this country. So let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Paul. Roxanne is going to lead us in This Land is Your Land.
You guys let me know when to start because I have no idea. Okay. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. That's really good.
Mark. So Mark Latrell is going to lead us in the invocation, and Marilyn Lynch is up next.
Let's pray. Father God, we just thank you that we could be here today in the company of like-minded individuals. And I pray, Lord God, that you would just encourage us through this meeting today. Let this time be a time of fellowship and just be with us and bless the food, bless the fellowship. Just bless this meeting, and we give you the glory and the honor for all that is done here today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mark. All right, for our guests, do we have some guests here that need to be welcomed? If you have a guest, please stand. If not, Marilyn.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. We do have one guest. I would like her to stand. My firstborn, Vicky, visiting me from Richmond, Virginia. Now, we have no visiting Rotarians, but we're going to sing the Howdy song. Howdy, it's glad to have you. Welcome. We sing it loud and clear. Relax, enjoy the program, and won't you come back to see us again?
Sean, I don't know that you've seen this before, but this is the Singing Rotary Club. All right. Oh, Marilyn, I meant to ask you to stay. Marilyn is a person of many talents. One of them is buying birthday cakes.
Yes, we do have a few birthdays today. Chuck Ailing on the 2nd, Mark Baker on the 8th, Tom Miller on the 13th, Bob Resnick on the 14th, Pizza Bill Smith on the 15th, Linda Stanwood, 21st, Consuela Martinez on the 23rd, Leela Sackfield, the 27th, Paulette Denallen, 28th, and Ann Steffieri, 30th. Let's sing happy birthday to our Rotarians. Happy birthday, you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
I'm hoping that Trent will be back. You know, Jay? Great, great news. Thank you. So we do have some announcements. Today we have an announcement from the International Rotary President, Shakar Mehta. I know you've seen that name. Probably haven't seen his picture though. Maybe you have in the magazine. Anyway, he is giving us our message today. As you see, quoting, for more than 20 years, our membership has stood at 1.2 million. My vision is to increase Rotary membership to 1.3 million by July 2022. And the call to action is simple. Each one, bring one. Hopefully we can help in this goal. So to give some encouragement and recognition for those who are working at bringing in new membership, we have a new little kind of a parlor plaque. It's, you see them on each table in the centerpiece. It's Building Relationships Tabletop. So Paul McNamara, Paulette Donaldson, Sandy McDougall, and myself have all brought in new members since the 1st of July. Well, how do you pick a goal for the year? Simple. 25. 2 months, 4. 6 times that is 24. And then one more for luck. So consider that a club goal for new membership this year. And if you read between the lines or between the cards, write down one name on your card today. So those cards in this centerpiece have all kinds of little things you can do. You can give me a suggestion for our meetings. You can make a comment about the lunch or suggest a speaker to Doug. Or you can write down on the card somebody you thought of while Sean is speaking today that would make a good Rotarian member. I think Paul's already got your name down, Sean, so forget writing his name. Anyway, any questions? Table talk starts today. I have to tell you thanks for a job well done. We have an assignment of 50 volunteers for Dixon Lake on the 18th of September. We now have 33, and half of those are out of our club. So all 5 clubs are participating, and it makes me proud to say that half of those who've signed up are members of this club. We could still use some more. You can bring some kids. I think there are actually a few family members that aren't counted in that. So it'll be a great event. There they are. 16 members from our club. Add your name to the list. Just go to escondidoshines.org and click in, put in your information. All right, I'm proud of you. Calendar, today we've got Sean McGlynn. And then Ray McEwen, David Jones, who's president of a local 5 club in Rotary, and Rupert Jones from the Padres. Okay, this is the moment you've been waiting for, I know. Who is this mystery spotlight? Does anybody want to throw out a guess at this point? There's the list. Folk music quartet, lived and worked in a museum now. I can't believe he would ask the Supreme Court justice to behave. This Salk versus Sabin vaccine. He wrote the article about Kennedy being slain. Deposed. They met the man who deposed the czar. This guy is not real. He can't be real. Randy, where did you come up with this name? I hyperventilated. Now that one I can believe. Acute acrophobia. Sometimes I feel it. Can't budget his checkbook. Okay. Randy, do you have any questions, or does anybody else have a question? Sharito has a question. All right. So you can ask any question to see if you can lead into a link. Donna next.
Oh, okay. Is his wife a member of this club too?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Ron, do you have a question?
Is his wife a member of the club? Apparently not. Andy's got one.
Andy?
Was he born in this country?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Donna's got a question,
Good.
Randy.
Yeah.
Up here. Nobody's got a name yet?
Is he as old as I am?
How old are
Is
you?
he as old as I am?
Oh, much older, I'm sure, but I don't know for a fact.
Okay. One last question. Okay, well, here are some clues that might help. Only going out club president to have a porta potty in his demotion. Okay, hold on to that. Hosted a convicted felon as a speaker at Rotary. This guy has great judgment. All right. He was a founding chairperson of Cour de Cuisine. Founding chairperson of Cour de Cuisine. And believe it or not, he hates the Howdy song. All right.
Dick,
All right. Dick, you
I
have
have
30
one
seconds.
question. I want to know about the Supreme Court justice that you straightened out.
At San Jose State, we had a visiting scholar that spring that I was on the staff of the campus newspaper. His name was Justice William O. Douglas. And he was an elderly Supreme Court justice. This is in the 60s. And this was spring. So all the women are starting to wear, they're not wearing coats anymore and all that. And the campus had its share of notable co-eds. And he couldn't get his eyes off. He kept, I taking him around. So I finally said, Mr. Associate Justice, I said, you're being noticed, please. I said, let's not have an incident or whatever. I don't remember what I said, but it was a gentle rebuke, knowing that he was basically, he had been a Supreme Court justice for like 40 years at that point, but that was true.
So how did you meet this deposed czar's?
I was at Foothill College, which was just down the road from Stanford University, and I was taking a comparative government class where you study England, France, Russia, and Germany. The teacher was named Nicholas Rokotansky, and he was a Russian immigrant. And one morning we walked into class. We didn't think this guy was worth much because we couldn't understand him. And it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and this old gentleman came in, And he said, this morning, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Alexander Kerensky. Alexander Kerensky is the Attorney General under the Tsar Nicholas regime, and he was the one who basically deposed and expelled them. And then 21 days later, Lenin came back from Finland and took over. But he was the man who basically deposed the Tsar, and so he was there. So I got a chance to talk to him after class, as all of us did. But that was what that was.
Well, thanks, Dick. Thank you for giving Randy your bio. If you want to be a mystery spotlight, get your information to Randy Hall. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce the Rotarian of the month, Alex Keeney. So Alex, come up. You know, we all know that she's an amazing person. Her fundraising activities over the summer with hikes. The thing that convinced me was when we got 3 grants this last month from the district. $2,000 for the little library, the mobile library. $1,000 for second serve tennis for our youth, and $3,000 for youth leadership development. So please join me. I need to give her the certificate. Oh, here we go. Somebody needs to take a picture. Well, we have a lot of special people in this club, and I'm honored to be with you as part of this service. Okay, it's time for Christine Montan to lead us in our song for Sean. I know you're going to eat this up, Sean. To the tune of I've Been Working on the Railroad.
Sean, as you have already seen, do you realize you're paying no attention while you're doing that? We've got a lot of talented people in this club. I don't happen to be one of them. I'm just on the fun song committee. So. Sean McGlynn's in Escondido all the live long day, working hard in Escondido. That's what council members say. Used to work in Old El Paso, New York Opera too. Now Escondido city manager, a public servant through and through. BA from University Pittsburgh, a master's in theater arts. 2020 city manager of the year. He's the best in these hair parts. Oh, how lucky we are to have him. A gentleman, a scholar, actor too. He's got ideas for Escondido. Sean McGlynn, he'll see them through. Business, did you know? Community, did you know? Sean McGlynn is here to help our city grow. Someone's in the city hall still working. Someone in the city hall we know. Planning for our future Escondido. Mayor Mac, watch this fellow.
You know, before I begin, I need to point out one thing about Dick Daniels. When he was in the Navy, the decks were wood. That's how old he is. So I think you probably know already from what you've heard from the the city council members. We are very, very fortunate to have Sean McGlynn as our new city manager. Even though it's only been a couple months, the impact has been noticeable, and we've seen it all. I think a lot of you know most of his background, but Sean comes from Santa Rosa, up in the Bay Area, and it's the seat of the Sonoma County. Santa Rosa, by comparison, has about 175,000 people, and its operational funding of 374 million, and a capital improvement budget of 62 million. So coming down to Escondido, you know he's very familiar with the size of our city and what we're trying to do. He assumed the role of directing Santa Rosa recovery efforts from the October 2017 Tubbs wildfire. While it was unfortunate that Santa Rosa had that, the one thing it brings for us is that if we have a wildfire, Sean knows the whole crew. He knows everybody already in the FEMA and all the other agencies. It caused over $1 billion worth of damages. Those efforts included strategically addressing affordable housing shortages, rising homeless population, and infrastructure challenges. Prior to being the city manager in Santa Rosa, Sean served as deputy city manager for El Paso, Texas, and also served for 6 years in the Department of Cultural Affairs in New York City. On a personal note, when I read his bio and we were interviewing, he was immediately my number one. And I thought, well, would any of the other city council members support this guy? Because I thought he had this incredible balance that the city needed. And I'm pleased to report when we voted, it was an enthusiastic 5-0 for Sean. And everyone who read his bio in detail or heard the answers to his questions, we just all knew instinctively that this was the guy for us. And without further ado, this is Sean. This is the SEAN Sean, the other guy, not the SHAWN.
So now you're really questioning city council's decision making, right?
If you have a problem with the feedback, we can have you stand away someplace.
Yeah, why don't I do that? Take this down here. And I'll step over here. So a little bit about my background. As you heard, I want to correct one thing for the record. Not an actor, never been an actor. I know poetic license made it really work really well, but my background is in not-for-profit arts and culture. I'm going to step over here. I love listening to myself, but as they know, right? So background in arts and culture in New York City, worked at New York City Opera in the education program there. Started off as I was sharing with Vaughn earlier in the adult education, but eventually moved into the schools partnership program, ran the schools partnership program for New York City Opera for several years. We were invested in extending the reach of the opera company. You'll say why, because it's folded now, but at the time it was doing a very, very discreet type of production that was tapping into actors and theater directors. And unfortunately, the Metropolitan Museum of the Metropolitan Opera Company decided that would be their model of business, and they basically pushed New York City Opera out of business. But at the time, we were working in schools throughout the city. One school we were working in had 100 different languages spoken in that school. And so we were really trying to get parental involvement going in those locations, because parental involvement is one of the key success metrics for students. If your parents aren't involved in your education, you got a lot of hills to climb to get to a successful outcome as a student. And so we were trying to build the bridge between music, build the bridge between the classroom, the student, and the parent. That was really rewarding work for me. But there's an anniversary coming up that touched me personally. It had to do with 9/11. I'd spent a summer working in Cantor Fitzgerald. And for those of you who don't know, Cantor Fitzgerald was an investment firm. It was located atop of one of the World Trade Center towers. Also, was working in Lower Manhattan as part of our school's outreach program. I stepped out of a workshop that I was working with some teaching artists, and I could notice that there was a problem at the World Trade Centers. I then witnessed the second plane go into one of the towers. At the same time, my wife was probably on her way to work to Midtown Manhattan, and the infrastructure for the cell collapsed, both literally when the buildings went down, but also under the pressure of the communications going on. So for about an hour, I didn't know whether my wife was okay or not okay. I had one of the good news stories of that day, but that event really galvanized the city, and I was excited to figure out how I could help us heal and advance. And Mayor Bloomberg, who just gotten elected that fall, put out a call for people who hadn't considered working in municipal government to give it a try. And so I did the thing that you're supposed to do is I applied off the street for a job at the Department of Cultural Affairs. And let me tell you, that's not how it works. It's a testing environment. So you're not supposed to apply off the street. You're supposed to be promoted up into positions. But he was really interested in bringing new people into the environment. So he appointed 1,000 provisional employees in his first year. And that's how you could skip the test. You become a provisional, step in, and then you take the test later. I got a real opportunity to work with cultural institutions of all sizes. The first set of relationships were with 34 city-owned institutions that ranged in scope and scale for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Museum of Natural History, Lincoln Center, and then out in the boroughs, there's something called the Staten Island Historical Society. That's not that dissimilar to our historical society, a collection of historic homes. The Jamaica Center for Arts and Learning, Performing Arts and Visual Arts campus, not that dissimilar to what we have at the Center for the Arts. So that was how I cut my teeth in municipal government. My boss at the time, she used to say, we fund the things that the donors won't fund in New York City. Let me tell you, our operating budget as an organization was $163 million per annum investing in arts and culture, because New York knew the reason people came to New York City was to shop or go to arts and culture. That's the reason they invested so heavily. We also had a capital campaign of investing in facilities when I left in 2008, a 10-year plan of $1 billion across all 5 boroughs. So that's how aggressive New York City municipal government was, which means we were in conversations about economic development, education, because Bloomberg had taken over the school system. We were talking about public safety because some of those institutions were targets post 9/11. So we were trying to work with police, fire, and emergency operations to make sure those facilities were safe as well as the visitors were coming to it. I was lucky enough to make enough of an impact in that organization to rise up the ranks, but at some point, it's a strong mayor form of government. And so if you're going to be a deputy commissioner or commissioner, you have to join the political fray. And I've never been, and that's what I made very clear, never been in politics. I like to see things get done. I like to see contributions done to the city, but I've never run for office, nor will I ever consider running for office. So I want to see us make progress. And that's the theme that I've kept close to my heart since I got in this business. So at that point, you know, the career goes to a certain level. And if you're not going to join the political fray, you have to think about other choices. And so my family, we just started a family, my spouse and I, Catherine, and we made the next logical choice to go to El Paso, Texas, right? Because that's where you go, from New York City to El Paso. Very different environments. You're talking about being at the center of a megalopolis that stretches from Boston down to Philadelphia to DC. And then you go to a place which is in the top 20 centers of population in the country, but dips into the 60s in terms of metropolitan area. Its relationship is across the border. So I had to change my entire perspective. Again, I was running arts and culture, but how do we get involved? How do we sustain activity? How do we make ourselves essential? Because arts and culture isn't usually looked on as essential service, right? It's something you do if you have extra resource. And we're talking about one of the poorest cities in the country. So how do they justify investing in arts and culture? And so we got involved in planning processes. We got involved in cross-border trade issues and exposure issues. We brought an artist who was a Chihuahuan artist to do a piece of work in downtown El Paso because that connectivity was important to the city. That's where the border, whatever you think of NAFTA, that's where the economic engine for El Paso ran. It ran on the maquiladora industry and the assembly industry. So I had to change my entire perspective, entire approach. Again, I got lucky enough to be, I guess, considered effective. So I got to be deputy city manager of a portfolio that included the airport, which is like running your own little city, economic development, a trade, because that relationship was important across the border. The zoo, we had our own zoo in El Paso, cultural fairs, parks, libraries, all of that was bundled together into a quality of life portfolio that I got an opportunity to lead for nearly a year. We were involved, as I said, in joint ownership with 2 bridges with the city of Juarez. And so we were negotiating public-private partnerships, including one to fund Customs and Border Controls to speed up the transition time across the border. So that's the kind of environment I was in. I like to say the council made one mistake. I was pretty happy there. They let me to be the city manager between 2 city managers and this transition between 2 city managers. And I said, you know, I like this job. I like facilitating citywide efforts. And so then I decided, you know, I want to do this long term. And I turned to my family, and she's an actor, and she built herself up in El Paso, but she had to go to Albuquerque and to Austin to really get work for herself. So so we said, well, let's as a family think about California. So I did the thing that, again, you're supposed to be able to do off the street, is apply for a city manager's job in California, because California is pretty special. That's what at least everybody tells me, right? So I applied for the job, and I kind of got lucky. They were in a little bit of disarray, and so I don't think they had a lot of choices. And so they said, you know what, that's not the worst decision we could make. And so I got a chance to go to Santa Rosa and lead Santa Rosa for the last 7 years. Santa Rosa is a similar size city to us. Santa Rosa has some real similarities. It's the capital of the agricultural area of the county, and it happens to be the county seat there, which is the major difference. But it's also one of those places that's developed differently than some of the planned communities around us, right? Didn't start off as a planned community, has developed those plans over time. So there's a lot of shared ideas, sort of, it's quadranted the same way. You've got a interstate or a highway running one direction north-south, and then a state freeway running essentially east-west. So it's nestled in a valley. That's the same thing with Santa Rosa. So essentially, there is that strong core that we share. I spent 7 years there working on housing, homeless issues. We made incredible advancements on behalf of the council on that front. Got to the council to a point where they were having a vision about the city. They were excited about that vision. It provides a little bit of a box for them, and sometimes they're uncomfortable with that, but it got us moving on a fast trajectory, which included reuniting the old courthouse square, which was essentially a bad redevelopment project from the 80s. Never had any of those, right? Bad redevelopment projects from the 80s. But this one had basically bifurcated to the downtown. So we reunified and be able to start to have business conversations. Well on the way to a mall redevelopment in downtown Santa Rosa. There's a mall that bifurcates its downtown, working on that. Working on homeless issues. We had the largest homeless population. There was a very, very built-in encampment that I had the pleasure of asking early in my 10 years. So how long has that been there? And I was told 17 years. So it was an encampment. I went up that first day to that encampment, and the hillside was literally moving, and it was moving with rats. And so we had to change the way we did business around homelessness in Santa Rosa. We had to really try to figure out how we were protecting the interests of communities and trying to help those folks in need, right? But really making sure that we weren't creating other health issues as we tried to service the homeless population. A couple of years in, I got to live through a very, very difficult set of circumstances. I just got finished talking about it because a lot of people ask me about that recovery process. And the mayor referenced that in 2017, a fire came into Santa Rosa, destroyed 3,000 structures, 2,600 of them mostly single family homes, a mobile home park, and some multifamily. That fire traveled from Napa County into the city limits and devastated those communities in a matter of 4 hours. 65 years earlier, similar fire took 4 days to travel from Napa County and hit the city limits. So stuff has changed in 65 years. The fuel loads out there are tremendous. The challenges we face. It devastated a FireWise part of our community, award-winning FireWise part of our community. We had to make some changes. We had to recover. I'm happy to say that most of that 2,600 homes have been rebuilt or are close to being rebuilt in the community in less than 3 years. That's unheard of. We really got our hands around the process of recovery, committed to that recovery, committed to making it a safer community. And that's another pledge I have for everybody here is we're going to do things and we're going to be a safe community and we're going to be a place you're going to be really proud of. Okay. So that's my pledge to y'all. You'll hear that Texas thing occasionally creep in there. I also have some roots in San Antonio area. My mom was born right outside San Antonio. So, but that's our pledge. We're going to have a great place. We're going to challenge things. We're going to make a name for ourselves, and we're going to be a safe place to do all of that stuff together. So I want to turn this over now because I need to hear from you all. I need to hear things that you're concerned about, give you a chance to ask me some questions. And so I'm going to turn it back around. All right. Thank you. So how did I get a master's degree in theater arts? Because I was working on theory and directing. So I was on the other side, which is the natural transition from being a facilitator in the theater, because directors, that's what theater directors are, is they're facilitators of actors and designers. And so that's a really easy transition for me to make from one to the other. Don't touch that mic.
My real, he knows better than to come close to a past district governor with a mic. No, the real question was, can you share information about what's happening with Westfield Shopping Center?
I can say it's on our list of things that we're looking at. I can't share the details at this moment. But it is an exciting opportunity there.
Given your experience with fire in Santa Rosa 2017, what should we be doing or what will we be doing with respect to, and we've had our fires, nothing as severe as that, but in 07 and 13. So what can the city be doing now to really ensure that we've got all the precautions necessary in the event that a fire does bring out?
So what I would say, Dick, is one of the things that we're advanced on is our collaboration across county. There's a lot of things that we came down here post 17 to better model up in Sonoma County. And I wish, frankly, we were further along, but things as simple as how we grid out evacuation routes are critical. The intelligence that we can get out of the camera system that's here is essential to making sure that we're prepared. We do still need to be addressing things like vegetation management, and we're going to look harder at that. I've got some work that we need to do on the emergency management side so that we've got some more plans in place. One of those things that I'm working on right now with the team is how we have a recovery framework, because the worst will happen. Hopefully the worst is small and contained, but something's going to happen. And we need to figure out how we as a community respond to the worst. And that's one of the things. And the other one is, unfortunately, with the worst comes a debris mission. And that's one place where the county's sort of dancing around a little bit, because the question is always going to be, where do you put the debris? But we don't want to be in a situation where they're taking the debris and dumping it in a place where the state's dumping it in a place like a beach that we're all not in agreement with. That's why we have to have stronger plans. So we're ahead of the curve, but we can always do better, and that's what we're going to be working on.
How did you deal with the homelessness up in Santa Rosa, and what are your ideas for homelessness in Escondido?
So homelessness has to be a regional issue, right? And we got to build some regional ties, because the reality is we're a service center, and there are reasons why we're a long-term service center, but that should not excuse the region from taking on this issue. And so that's one of my questions is, where's the region in this conversation? And I'm getting educated, but I'll be honest, I think it needs to progress much further than it is. So I'm having conversations with city managers, I'm having a conversation with the county, but I may need some help from the elected officials in terms of how we define that space. But if we just look at it, there's a limit to what we can do as a city, because our homeless residents, and I call them residents because they show up on our streets, are not bound by a house or a residence sometime, and they move through locations. So we got to have a better system of care in place. And that's going to take time. I don't know how else to say it. It takes time, but we need a better regional system to attack that issue. And that's what I'm trying to work on.
Hi.
Yes.
So homelessness, fires, those are like emerging needs, and the ability to influence those situations it takes a lot more than a city government to handle them.
Yep.
But in Escondido, we have a pretty wide ranging set of quality of life standards. And I'm wondering if you have a philosophy or approach for balancing quality of life standards against cost saving measures and revenue generating possibilities. Like how do you make decisions on those kinds of ideas?
So this should be the best place to live, right? I mean, and so we want it to be the best place to live, but that's the question that I'm going to need to look to my elected leadership to help us define. And that's one of the things that we're going to be going into after the first of the year is we need to develop a vision to match that particular goal. I think it's incredibly important for any city, and it develops pride, develops commitment if you have a high quality of life. But quality of life is not necessarily something you can do on the side and on the skinny, right? You need to commit to quality of life. We have some really great assets here, but we're going to have to ask some of those challenging questions. And so I'm going to need the community's input in that conversation. It's not for me, but I will tell you, to get business, to retain business, to attract our youth and keep our youth engaged, those are the things they're looking for. And I think we can be a place that offers that. We have some really interesting entrepreneurial startups. We've got a business that's supplying gluten-free bread to some pretty big entities out there. We've also got somebody working in water reuse. She comes out of here. I think we can be an activation point and a real place for people to think about R&D, but they're going to want a quality of life experience for themselves and their employees to match that. And so we're going to have to really work hard on that front. Okay. Oh, that killed the conversation right there, huh?
Hi, Ron Smith, former school principal, all in the Escondido Union School District. this club has some amazing talent, artistic talent in it. We have the choral director of the Escondido Choral Arts Foundation, the artistic director. We also have folks that are in the Pacific Lyric Theater organization, and they're very excited, and so are we, about the possibilities for what they're going to do in our own center. With your art background, I'd like to hear a little bit about your vision for the Center for the Arts and how that ties into quality of life goals.
Well, and again, vision comes out of community need, and I'm in that assessment phase, and so I'm going to need help with that vision a little bit. What I can tell you is we've got a tremendous asset, an asset that we got to see be recognized as a draw and supported by our residents. And so we've got some work to do, and I think the center recognizes that. We need some relevancy work around the center, but that's not just the center itself. I think there's some real opportunities to think about how we're a creative hub in the North Bay. That's one of my challenges for the newly appointed Economic Development Deputy Director, and she seems to be up for that challenge, but I think we can be looked upon as a special place as it relates to arts and culture and a driver of economic activity. One of the things we're going to partner with the city of San Diego is doing a regional study on the economic impact that each of our communities brings. And I think it's going to be pretty revelatory as it relates to Escondido and its place in that space, because I can see the creatives that are in this room. We're going to need you to help us. I mean, there's other places I'd like to think about going, including live workspace for artists. That's one of the biggest issues is artists, they don't make much money, do they? Oh, so that's one of the things that we could be creative about where we're going in terms of partnership and creating a place that maybe artists could locate to and then become its own economic vitality engine because of their location in our space. And it's a different way to consider affordable housing. It's affordable housing with an economic driver built into it. Yes.
Yeah, could you comment on there's a big difference between the politics and culture between, let's say, Santa Rosa and Escondido. Can you comment on that and how that's affected how you approach your jobs?
I'm always approaching the job the same way. Politics, that's what I said early on. I was in New York City. Can't get much different than New York City to El Paso, Texas, El Paso, Texas, Santa Rosa. Each of those environments is different. I'm trying to help get the council to get to a vision, and they're going to need your assistance in that and how we realize that vision. To me, politics is mostly a disagreement on how we're going to get there, but underneath it, I think everybody wants their community to be successful. And so you're going to see I'm a registered independent. That's where I live. I don't pick one side of the fence or the other. I live right down the middle. Yes. You're gonna take it away from me?
Well, I do have a question. Myrna and I moved here 8 years ago. And when we came, we were amazed at the spirit of service that is within this community. And it's very unique, I think. But it's segmented in parts of the community. And one of the challenges as an organization, we've kind of worked with different ways we can serve. We've done things with I Love a Clean San Diego. We instituted Escondido Shines for the purpose of inviting others in the community to join in service with us. But there's been a challenge of lifting people out of their individual perspective. I'm the chamber, I'm the compact, I'm this, I'm a church, I'm that. Do you see any opportunity with your experience to build unity within the community as a whole so that we all look at Escondido and we say, this is our city and it is great, it shines, so to speak? Your thoughts?
So again, I think that's critical, is getting that unifying space. And that's one of the challenges I'm going to be laying out in front of council, is that we need to have a vision, right? Not just an operating model. Where do we want to be and where do we want to go in the next 5 to 10 years? And I think, Vaughn, that can be a rallying cry for folks to figure out how they're going to work together to get to that finish line. But one of the things I need to know, and this can be part of our continuing conversation, is where is that disconnect? Because I think as a city, we might be able to serve as a way to unify causes and agendas. Because again, underneath it, I feel like what we're all shooting for is that great place, right? And we want to sustain it and see it advance. And so how do we work together to do that? And that's why I've encouraged everyone, much to Lori Pike's chagrin, to reach out to me at City Hall and figure out how we get together, right? Because I need to hear some of the challenges you're facing with the community, with me, with the city. And I'm going to promise you, we're going to listen to those conversations. And so please, let's get in that conversation and figure out how we can work together in a unified way. Thank you.
I have something for you. Traditionally, we give the words of these stunning compositions to the guest speaker. So that's your copy of Now He Works in Escondido.
And I know who to thank.
Okay. And thanks again for being our guest speaker today. There it is. Closing thought. Who are we? We're Rotary. There are 5 of us, 5 clubs in this city. That is rare. And every one of them is great. So how do we catch the vision of what's our role as the Rotarian club historically in the city, as the best club in the district? You know, I don't want to be preaching from the pulpit in any sense, but I see in you and us as a team so much capacity, so much growth. And I just can't sit here and not say, step up a little. Not that you haven't done well, but that we as a team have the power to make things move. And we do that by growth. And so I've said to myself, to our Rotary International president, yeah, we shouldn't be sitting at 1.2 million for 20 years. This club should not be sitting at its number for years. And it simply is an expectation to grow. We have to expect someone to want to be a member. That expectation will drive. It's the engine. And so I say, let's consider. We have just a simple little tool. It's called a table. And it's a place where you can capture an idea or a thought or whatever. Give it a chance. Keep the card handy. And when you think of a thought during lunch, and you say, well, now that could work, write it down and give me the card. Or give it to a board member or something. I'm going to let you out 10 minutes early today, so relax. I'm done. But I want you to be proud of yourself and where we can go. Take a card, figure out a name that ought to be a member of this group. And in 9 months, we will look at it and say, all right, we did it. 25 new members, quality, solid. Now they're part of it. Have a great day.